In 1978, though, a rather different white leader emerged in the person of P.W. Botha. At first, his view was familiar.
We believe in a system of private initiative, and we will protect it as far as it is humanly possible.
Although unyielding on the basic principle that South Africa's government would never be decided on the basis of one man, one vote, he did begin a process of reforms that seriously weakened the old apartheid system. Repeal of the hated pass laws was the most popular, ending a system where blacks continually had to account for their movements. Arrests for being in the wrong place had been frequent. Ending that brought joy to civil rights workers.
Well, I could actually burst into tears in front of the camera because it has been so many years of misery and suffering, and this is just, it's just great.
But other miseries remained. Much hated was the creation of separate black homelands. They were set up in areas often barren of even the most basic provisions and filled by people forcibly transported from the shanty towns. Lacking any economic basis, men were torn from their families to find work back in the established centres, while women built homes from the earth. Against this, constitutional changes giving blacks a greater role in local government carried little weight. The crescendo of black protest continued unabated, and the police, as always, reacted energetically. By now, Mandela was being held in Pollsmoor prison near Cape Town, and students regularly marched in protest at his continued detention.
Nelson Mandela, you and other political leaders are in prison, and the people are not free. While the people are oppressed, South Africa will remain in the grip of an escalating cycle of frustration, anger, and violence.
Demonstrations were illegal and led to the inevitable response. Also illegal was a parade to mark the 25th anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre. Police fired on 2,000 demonstrators, killing 17. Mandela's wife, Winnie, was pessimistic about the future.
There's no way that one can see any better days for the future of this country. I'm afraid the future is as grim as we have seen today.
And the cycle of violence continued to take its grim toll in the black townships. Townships were seething, the protests and the violence flooded to the edges of the cities themselves. Mr. Botha's government responded in July 1985 by declaring a state of emergency in 36 districts.
This state of affairs can no longer be tolerated. Thus far, the government has shown the utmost patience. However, I cannot ignore the insistence of all responsible South Africans, especially of the majority of black communities, who ask that conditions are normalized and that they are granted the full protection of the law to continue their normal life in South Africa.
The powers of the security forces were expanded, but the violence continued to increase. Despite severe reporting restrictions, indelible images of brutality by the security forces still circled the world as police again resorted to firearms to quell disturbances. When youth stoned traffic in Athlone near Cape Town, police staged their deadly response from an apparently innocent lorry that ran the gauntlet twice. 3 people were killed and many more injured in this incident. An increasingly desperate government put growing pressure on the imprisoned Mandela to trade freedom for a denunciation of violence. But always his wife brought messages proving that he was resisting those demands.
We have never asked for favors from the government. We have never expected to be treated separately. We are just part of the family that is struggling for justice and peace in our country.
The more repressive the regime grew, the more influential Mandela became, providing an ever sharper focus for protest despite a generation of imprisonment.